Oh, did you want to go into the whole MCMA problem real quick about what's going on over there to bring some
Sure.
attention towards it?
So in the state of Michigan, right now, the current legislation that they're trying to push, it would make it very restrictive on home grow rights. It would reduce home grow rights, especially for caregivers, and it's going to restrict access to even patients. This is the way it really happens. So the MCMA drafts, they have a lawyer draft ordinances that are just broad so that they can just fill in blanks. And then they go to the municipal league, pass them all out to the municipal lawyers, and the lawyers fill in the blanks for their municipality. And then I took one day off work and went down to Lansing, and I was up there for hours. I just went to the House of Congress building and went to every office that had an open door, knocked on it, walked in, and just started talking.
Let's get into the Canna Politics in Michigan. You're here with Russ, a.k.a. Spartan Grow, and Mark and the rest of the team here on Perfect Gardens TV. Please remember to like, share, and subscribe. Make sure to check us out on Instagram and Facebook and our $2.99 membership. If you need a little more one-on-one, please check out the VIP link down below.
Make sure to hit the join button on the bottom of every video.
All right, Spartan, please introduce yourself then to Perfect Gardens TV, first time on the show. And after that, we'll get into our first few questions.
Hello, I'm Russell Patton. Most people know me by my name, Spartan Grown. You can find me on Instagram under that name, Spartan Grown. It's all one word, no spaces. There's some imitators out there, so watch for that. And that's really the only social media I do. Other than that, I do have an email address, spartangrown@gmail.com. And I love to answer any questions that people have about growing cannabis. Feel free to reach out to me and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. But I'm a commercial grower here in the state of Michigan. We grow in they call it the adult use market here. And then also I have a background early on in 2008 when Michigan did the first step in towards legalization. They set up a caregiver patient program. I participated in that as a caregiver and a patient. And so I've been a cannabis grower from, I'll say I've been a legal cannabis grower since 2008 and since the system started up. And I've been commercially growing only about going on my third year now. So that's my experience. And as far as education side of things, I've been on YouTube shows like yours, but I haven't been on this one yet. I actually do 3 weekly shows, and then I just go on as guest appearances as many as I can, just because I feel that cannabis education is the way to free this plant from the restrictions that it has needlessly. It was just, all lies that were told us in the past, and now we're slowly breaking down those lies. And in my experience, the easiest way to change people's mind is to heal somebody with it.
Absolutely. Create a different relationship and connection to the planet in general. 100%.
Oh, did you want to go into the whole MCMA problem real quick about what's going on over there to bring some attention towards it?
So in the state of Michigan, it's slightly complicated. So I'm not going into detail here yet, unless you'd like me to. But the MCMA is a lobby group created here in the state of Michigan that most of the largest commercial entities, well, at least that's what the MCMA claims, that they have members that are of some of the largest entities in the state on the commercial side of things. And so we're talking multi-state operators, those kinds of companies, gigantic companies. This money is being used by the MCMA lobby group to draft laws that they're trying to push through the state level to do. Right now, the current legislation that they're trying to push, it would make it very restrictive on home grow rights. It would reduce home grow rights, especially for caregivers, and it's going to restrict access to even patients. They see people growing cannabis at home as competition to themselves, and they want to reduce everybody who can grow. So as soon as they get rid of home growers, they also look for making regulations more strenuous, even on the commercial side, so only the biggest players can afford to play the games. So we're actively in Michigan, grassroots, and then other groups getting together we have a boycott list up where all of the known companies of the MCMA, we don't know them all because they took down all the information off their website. But the major players that we do know that are in the MCMA, we're asking people not to buy their products. We're doing personal lobbying. As far as myself, I just drive up to Lansing and go talk to senators and Congress people and educate them. But then there's also organized lobby events where groups are getting together. There's other lobby groups like the MCIA, which is another industry group, but they don't cater to just the biggest corporations. They allow everybody in. So most of their members are small guys. They're actually on our side, and they have organized lobby days and helped us, provided us with information, places to meet, and coordination so that we can see as many lawmakers as possible.
That's good, man.
Yeah. So they have delayed it. I mean, they were trying to push it all the way through before the end of the year, and they shelved it for the end of the year. They haven't taken it back up yet this year, but we're keeping an eye on them.
Just to give you you and the other viewers kind of like an example of what you were talking about in the very beginning around regulations and deterring people from growing just their own medicine. Here in Colorado, lived in Boulder, Colorado a couple years ago, and lived on a 1 acre place, small home, but lived on 1 acre. So there's more than enough space around us. There's not a lot of homes around us, not a regular subdivision. And I got a knock on my door, I think a total of 7 times, because they wanted to know what was in my greenhouse that was 400 square feet, and that the neighbor that was maybe 2 acres away was complaining about. And that's exactly what you're talking about, right? Is you want to grow a couple plants and you have a greenhouse, but they can't see what's in it and they don't like it. And someone's going to complain. And instead of just saying, hey, listen, whatever, but they actually have task force now to go out there and say, hey, can we come out in your backyard and see what's in your greenhouse, trying to convince you to give up your rights. And once again, harassing you when there's no reason to harass you, even just to grow your own food. They get a complaint, but who wants to even grow their own food nowadays when they're going to get a possibility of a cop knocking on their door, wanting to know what's in their backyard?
Right. And that's the things where I think education really helps. Education to the public so that they know what their rights are, and then education to these policymakers, because yes, the same kind of thing is happening here, even at the local level. The MCMA has lobbied to the municipal lead, and the municipalities now are drafting ordinances at the local level that are actually against the Constitution of Michigan, some of them. And so I have to, not only me, I don't want to take credit for all of this. There's a huge group of people doing this. But what we're doing is organizing, calling up these localities, finding out if there's ordinances on the books or if they're starting to draft ordinances, taking a look at the ordinances, and then pulling them apart, picking them apart, or working with them saying, look, if you tweak this, then this ordinance is workable. But in my opinion, and in my conversations, the way that I attack that is I say, can you explain to me, this is me talking to a lawmaker, can you explain to me the reason you need an ordinance? Because if you find out the reason behind it, 9 out of 10 times, there's already laws against the things that they're afraid of. Like often I hear, I don't want somebody growing 90 plants in their backyard. I'm like, well, that's already not legal. So why would you need an ordinance for that? Or we don't want, noxious smells. We're going to get orders from, this terrible odors, and it's going to cause an issue. I said, if that causes an issue, you already have an ordinance for depreciating the value of your neighbor's property. That's already an ordinance. You don't need.
It's no different than having a barbecue.
Yeah, exactly. It's no different than barbecues or a million different other things.
Like a vegan complaining about a barbecue, like, oh, I don't want to smell their meat smell.
Well, the funny thing is the caregiver law, specifically here in Michigan, is medicinal. It's medicinal. So it's covered under the HIPAA laws and the privacy rights. And a lot of these ordinances go against the Constitution because they require the addresses, because they if it's an ordinance, they usually want you to have some kind of a license. You got to buy like some kind of a license to allow you to grow. Well, when they do that, they have to have your address. And if you supply your address, you're going against HIPAA. You're asking somebody to give up their address and their personal information just because they have a medical condition, which is against the law. So I have to tell a lot of these lawyers, this is the way it really happens. So the MCMA drafts, they have a lawyer draft ordinances that are just broad so that they can just fill in blanks. And then they go to the municipal lead, pass them all out to the municipal lawyers, and the lawyers fill in the blanks for their municipality. And then the lawyer brings that to the municipality, say, look what I wrote for you guys. We should adopt this. But as I go to each municipality and see they're almost exactly the same, it's really easy to see what's going on. This was prepared by someone and it's spread among all the municipalities. So when I bring that up, I say, look, guys, your lawyer is playing you guys. Look at this township, look at this township, look at this township, and tell me it's not the same thing you're looking at now. And those townships haven't passed it yet, because I've talked to them and told their lawyers that this is against the law. So but all of this stuff would have, there's lots of these ordinances have already passed. And I've had to go tell these guys, look, you might want to open this up and change a few things. It's just all this stuff goes on. We don't get to know that. All these meetings happen during the day when most people are at work.
Yeah, exactly.
And so stuff just goes in and nobody even knows what's going on. And it's
important stuff to talk about because it can slip into anywhere.
If you have the ability to go to, it's usually a monthly meeting. If you have the ability to go to your local monthly meeting, that is where most people can make the most difference because nobody goes. So even one voice is a lot. And if you can get 10 voices,
like an organization where someone gets paid for that day to just go and then be a representative of the community, like that'd be such an easy thing to do.
What we've done here locally in Michigan is they're created a Facebook group and then they're just assigning people to localities. Nice. Like, oh, you live there? Hey, check out this place and just keep up on it. And then everybody's already living there and they only have to check up on one thing. It's not so hard instead of trying to check up on all the different municipalities. So that's kind of the idea behind
back and then having to fight for those steps again.
Yep. There's Amy Carter here in Michigan is organizing a Facebook group for that. I forget. Michigan Weedsters. Michigan Weedsters is the name of the group. So check that out.
You know, I when I sit here and I think about you guys a little bit through this conversation, maybe this point goes nowhere, but I think a lot about how laws are created in our country, right? It's who can create a law? Congress, right? And I do understand that cannabis plants are still federally illegal. We're going state by state. So state has definitely has authority. Help me out with this. So the state Congress creates laws, governors enforce laws, ordinances aren't new laws. They're guidelines, to my understanding. So kind of like, tell me out with this. Where am I veering off or wrong on this? How does an ordinance become a situation where something can be enforced on a person? And is it only through giving up their personal rights?
The best way for me to explain an ordinance is like what you were just describing, how federal law says that cannabis is restricted, but the state law says, no, we're going to allow it here in this state. Or an ordinance would be like a locality law. So like the state can make their law outside of the federal, a locality can make their laws as long as it's within the scope of what's allowed by the state constitution. Like they couldn't say, like if the state constitution said, pick anything, drunk driving is illegal. You couldn't make an ordinance at a local level saying drunk driving is totally illegal. No, you can't make something legal that's illegal at the state level. So it still has to jive with state laws, but it's like a more restrictive law at the local level. It works very similarly, just at a smaller scale. So you usually have 5 or 6 people on a city council or a township board, and there's one ordinance officer who writes the ordinance usually, and then it's voted on by the council. They're supposed to be voting for the community's best interest in this. And that's another way to attack them. It's like, look, man, in Michigan, we voted it in. We wrote the law, the 2008 laws, and had them voted in my ballot. It wasn't written by Congress. So there's numbers out there that are public figures that I can pull up these localities and say, look, man, when we voted for cannabis legalization, 85% of I'm just making up a number right now because they're different everywhere, but like 85% of your people voted yes, and you're trying to restrict. Can you explain this? You're not representing the will of your people. Now, there's some parts in this state where there's very, very, very conservative views and old-fashioned views. They don't have the education, and it might be swinging the other way. And if I see those numbers, I'm like, okay, I'll go up there when I get a chance, but it's more important for me to go somewhere where the people actually want this. I'm not going to fight an uphill battle when there's a ton of downhill battles for me to fight. But it's just like putting out fires to me is what the way that I look at it in my head is just like, okay, here's another ordinance coming up that's too restrictive. Time to go put out that fire. And
it's almost like it's just something to put a sour taste in people's mouths who want to grow, and then it makes them just want to push away from it a little bit. Like,
well, let's be honest here. Let's be honest here too. Ordinances, if you produce an ordinance, that's telling the city council that as an ordinance officer, you're doing something. You're doing your job. If you have ordinance officers that have never written an ordinance, I think that's fucking amazing, great. But other people think, hey, we're paying this guy to do nothing. So there's always that weird pressure for these guys just to write stuff. And then at the state level, it's even more so because when you're a career politician, I mean, it's your job. Most of these people at local level, it's a part-time job. But at the state level and at the federal level, that's their job. And their job is to be reelected the next year. And the way that they're judged from each other is how many bills have they pushed through and actually got to go through. So they're constantly just writing laws to try to prove that they are doing something right.
I have a question for you.
Sure.
How old were you the first time you ever smoked?
I would have been in my late 20s, early 30s. I don't remember exactly.
How old are you now?
43.
43. Do you think the first time you ever picked that up, you would be here explaining stuff like this and have this level of understanding of our political system on a local all the way up to a federal level?
No, definitely not.
That's crazy, right?
And I had that understanding just from the last 6 months of me pushing and fighting against these guys.
Wow.
It'd be a blessing in disguise. Like it like allows you to learn more about your community and to fight for your community. And it allows you
to be honest with you guys, you're right. And to be honest with you guys, I don't pay for any TV. I've canceled all streaming stuff for my TV stuff because I watch YouTube or I'm on YouTube or I'm researching stuff so that I know what the hell I'm talking about when I go into, cause it's pretty intimidating, especially when you go down into like a state capitol building and everybody's in a suit dressed 10 times better than you in $1,000 suits. Mm-hmm. And it's a little intimidating to go down there. You know, I don't give a fuck. I'll go in there with a sweatshirt. I just want to get down there and get the information down. For me to be comfortable. Yeah, for me to be comfortable in those situations, I have to have the knowledge in my head, and then it's easy for me. Then I can walk in there and be comfortable. So that's how I prepare myself.
Coherently, it kind of throws them off because they're like, "Whoa, this guy looks like he's going to talk differently, speak differently, carry himself differently, and he's carrying himself professionally and portraying himself professionally, and actually shows that he's caring about his community." And it probably throws them through a loop, and they're like, "Whoa."
You're 100% right, bro. You're 100% right because you don't know how many comments. And I don't even want to say it like it wasn't every single person I talked to, but a lot of them. And it was surprising to me. Even the opposing viewpoint. I even talked to the people who wrote the bill, the sponsors of the bill. I even talked to them. I don't care. I'll talk to any of them. And the sponsors on the bill, Representative Clements, he even turned around to me after our conversation. He said, "You know what?" He said, "I really appreciate your approach, man." He said, "You came to me respectfully." He goes, "I am not getting that response from caregivers right now." I said, "Well, you have to understand, man. They're feeling attacked by this." And it's like, it doesn't matter. He said, "You know, when you come at somebody all hard, they're going to be on the defensive." And he said, "And you didn't come at me like that." And I said, "Well, it doesn't get me anywhere to do that. I already know that. Yeah. I'm just here for information because I realize that everyone I talk to, when I'm just, instead of going, 'This is bullshit, you know, you guys are trying to fuck us,' I'm like, 'Can you explain to me the reason why you want this to happen in your bill? Can you tell me why this is in the bill and why you support it?' And then I'll be like, 'Well, you're completely wrong. That's not the case.' And then I just educate them. But that's the best approach. Just be respectful.
Most of these guys don't even read the bills. You know, someone else.
Absolutely right.
They have no idea what's in them. When you really think about the bigger scope of life, as you get older, you realize how many people are addicts in general, right? So you think because they're wearing $1,000 suit that they're not suffering from the same issues that every other human being could be possibly suffering from, right? And not just that, they might have kids. They might have an ex-wife. They might have a wife that's cheating on them. They might be cheating on their wives. Who knows what's going on? And then they're expected to sit down and read a 500-page bill. And really, at the end of the day, they're just looking for someone to really push over the liability for the signature, you know? And
man, it's worse than that, man. There's people up there that, for example, the people that we have term limits here in Michigan. So anybody whose term, this is an election year for us. We just walked into an election year for us here in Michigan. And so there's senators, Congress people that are either on their way out, they can't run again. I call them the lame ducks. And those are the dangerous ones because that's when they start trading favors. And what I mean by that is, hey, if you vote for my bill, I'll vote for your bill because there's no consequences for me. I'm not doing anything after this. I'm out. So that's the dangerous stuff. And so I tend to avoid even talking to those guys because they're going to do whatever they want. And I want to go for the people that are looking for re-election. That's where I focus most of my time and efforts because those are the people that are going to try to at least listen to the people they're supposed to be representing because they want to get that vote.
Yeah, I want to bring up a couple more words too, just because we're in this scope of conversation. 2 words I want to bring up. Your sovereign power and freedom. I think there's a huge confusion in this world. Like, I think freedom is projected in our society, but it's something that people think we have to fight for, or we have to take, or we have to win, or we have to buy. And it's marketed to us so that we can, in somewhat, be aggressive around obtaining something that's actually already ours. And the other word to that is our sovereign power. And that's really also what you're doing too, is you're going over there and you're cultivating your sovereign power, and you're not allowing anyone to tread on you in a sense. And you're saying, hey, listen, I might not look the same as everyone else, but I can articulate my sovereign power, and I can use the language that's necessary in this realm so that I'm respected, and people are going to be precautious on who they're actually approaching in this moment. Because in the Black world, it's you're beefing up on someone, or they feel that energy or authority. But in the white world, it's about language and it's about doctrine, and it's really understanding those two words, not trying to obtain your freedom, but just know it's there, and it's called your sovereign power.
And you're, first of all, I just want to agree with you. You're 100% right. But there's another weird phenomenon I find in people, and people are very good at getting comfortable in a spot and staying there. They don't like to get out of their comfort zone. And it's very uncomfortable to go into situations like that and to try to speak your mind in front of somebody, because you're going into their den. That's their office. They go there every single day. They're comfortable. You're not. But I just want to hammer home the point. If you just go in there and you're respectful and you treat them like what you're saying, they're human beings. They're going through all kinds of shit too. Just treat them like a human being. And it's amazing the doors that open for you. It's just amazing. And then if you just try to do things like, I don't know, this people are like, oh, it's impossible. It's all corrupt. I'm like, how do you know that? Have you been down there? Have you talked to any of them? Or are you just repeating what they say, what keeps everybody at home so they don't have to deal with you? You can send all the emails you want, and I appreciate it, because we've flooded them with emails. We've flooded them with phone calls and everything else. And it's making a difference, because when I went down there, every one of those people, when I said, gave the House Bill 5300, I'm here to talk about that. They knew exactly what I was there to talk about, because people were calling, and I appreciate that. But, it's really hard to ignore somebody right in front of your face. So if you can just take one day a month, one day every 6 months, I took one day off work and went down to Lansing, and I was up there for hours. I just went to the House of Congress building and went to every office that had an open door, knocked on it, walked in, and just started talking. I mean, it's not rocket science. I would say to at least have a bullet point list on a piece of paper, maybe make copies so you can hand them out, of maybe 5 topics that you would like to talk about that are the worst things, because you're going to get in there, get nervous, and forget. And then you can leave them with something. And
you're absolutely right. You're turning your army into giving them action steps, bite-sized action steps, where, like we were talking about, I guarantee you these guys did not read this document, right? And it's the companies and the organizations that have the money around this document that they've created to push it forward, right? Lobbying, really. And so when you go in there, and if you go in there, like you're saying, and making the effort to actually understand those words on that paper, and go in there and find the few things that will create a butterfly effect in that document, and educate, like you're saying, like, okay, we need to change these 3 things. All the rest is fluff, all the rest is to distract everyone, but find these 2 or 3 main points. And guys, like you're saying, a leaflet, this is what we need to drive home to these people, that this is what needs to go, or this is what it like you saying, needs to understand. And then educating these people on asking a question versus attacking, saying, hey, do you understand what this is going to do? Do you understand the true ramifications or consequence? And then at that first time, they're going to read it, and they're going to look at it probably for the first time they've ever in the first time, if that makes sense.
You're absolutely right, man. There's so many surprised faces when I would bring up some of my bullet points. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And they'd be like, what? I'd be like, yeah, man, that's what this says. And this ramifications. This is what will happen. For example, I'll give one example, not to get too detailed on all of it, but one single line that I'm bringing this up, it's my little pet peeve because nobody else talks about it but me, but it's near and dear to my heart. They changed a section near the back of the medical law that basically strikes out all ability to make any kind of a concentrate. They changed the language that was originally in the law was written to prevent home blasting, because that's open blasting, because that's obviously dangerous and we don't want that in a home setting. You cause fires, shit like that. So the language used to basically say you can't use any butane extraction, and they struck that all out, and they said you can't collect the pollen from the plant with any solvent or with using any solvent or any flammable substance. Well, God damn it, just about everything's flammable at a certain temperature. So that means that making canna butter at home is now an illegal thing. And when I say that to people that are, lawmakers, I said, and what that means is you're saying people that have lung issues, you want to force them to smoke it for their medicine instead of be able to consume an edible.
Let's go deeper than that, right?
But I tell them though, one more thing though, is I tell them the real reason for this language change in this law is because this is written by the MCMA, which is a company that represents gigantic commercial interests that want no homemade cannabis products because they want the entire market. And so you're telling me that you want to reduce access to your patients to be able to, you're taking away an option from a patient to force them to go into buy their medicine. That's what you're behind if you vote for this bill. And man, there's there's not very much argument when I tell them that.
Well, we'll go even deeper than that, right? They're asking them, do they want to make manufacturing illegal in the United States? Plain and simple, being able to, what are we always complaining about? All the manufacturing is getting shipped out to China. They're making everything over there and shipping it back to us. Well, we're deterring people from educating themselves about biology, chemistry, about melting points, about making yogurt, butter, like you're saying, the basic things that you could utilize to one day transition this knowledge into feeding your own family. Like we're talking about 13 years ago, you picked up a plant for the first time, used it, and now you're here releasing information to 45,000 people about how to encourage people to go and speak to their local municipality about curbing the regulations or lighting up on them. And when you make something illegal on the basic level, what is the true ramifications of that long-term in our society? Do we just, okay, I'm not going to even try to learn something new. I'm not going to even try to make something because I could be fined. I could be put in jail. And we become more of a somewhat stupider society. We keep just because of regulation.
You just have to not be afraid to ask. Like you said, you can work your way around it sometimes, but ask, see if you can. But in the camp space, I always recommend make sure you go through a lawyer too, because a good lawyer is going to make sure that you don't make a wrong step.
Did you hear what Mike said? You did?
Did anybody hear what I said?
I did hear him.
Okay, there's a little audio was a little messed up on my side, but just to highlight that one point, what Mike said specifically, just in case other people hear it, instead of claiming his growing flower as smokable canna flower, he said he's going to be producing flour from the stock. And we just shot another video about a baker that baking flour. Exactly. He grinds up the stock and makes baking flour for making bread. And so what Mike's doing now is adjusting how he fills out the paperwork. And who knows where that goes. And that's very smart.
I don't know.
But here in my state, they would consider the flour would have to be destroyed then. You wouldn't be able to do anything else with that flour. Or if you were to do anything else with that flour, it would be restricted, like it normally is. And the stock, then you could process as flour if you wanted to. I don't know. I have never heard of anybody doing that here, but I'm sure you could process the stock for flour as another product. But I would imagine here in Michigan, the way they're doing things is they make you still go through their regulatory scheme, even CBD. Even CBD right now, the only place you're supposed to legally be able to buy it is through provisioning centers. And even though gas stations carry it somehow.
But my point is, Josh, is that I'm talking to this government official and he had no idea I was going to throw this at him, right? Because they know I'm sending them a whole bunch of revenue, tax revenue. And every year they've been giving me, but it's never hard because I got the big companies behind that want to control the flow and they're saying we'll produce too much and we're already flooded, so it's not going to make a difference. So I changed things around now. Now I reapplied for 6,000 plants, but I changed my reason. Now they have to give me an audience. They have to give me an opportunity to defend my point because I took the time and thought outside the box and I didn't get discouraged and I don't scream and yell and do anything. I can disagree with a smile. You know what I mean? That's very important.
Kind of describing what you guys are saying is, every country is going to have different regulatory processes, right? But you still approach the problem with the same cordial, ability. You have to go up, talk to them professionally, shake their hand, try to speak their language, make an effort to speak their language. and by doing that, whether you're in Canada, because it might have different regulatory processes, maybe you'll be able to do this, or whether in the United States, either way, approaching these people with respect is hands down probably the best way to do this.
Yeah, sounds good.
All right. So
I just wanted to go. I just wanted to go into that because I did forget that was going on over there, and that is something that he is very passionate about too, and it's good to get into so it doesn't happen in other communities. So it's good to talk about that and what he's going through and how we can mimic that if it does happen. So,
guys, get involved with your local community. Do not go through 100 years of struggle with this plant, driving it into the future to just give up now. Please remember to like, share, and subscribe only on Perfect Gardens TV. Have a great grow, everyone.
You can see, look here, this is a root. See root cells here, and you can see those little tetrads inside those cells. So this is just so that you can get a close look at the bacteria inside the cells. And this is in the area that these bacteria are going in.